Hello friends, and welcome back to the Wide League. Welcome back to the Pokemon Unite Shuffle with myself, Relic, and her, Sophchan. Of course, big shout out to the people bringing you the pretty pictures today, that being Gamma and WDMichael. And up next, we've got our winners finals, Soph, and it's a nice full circle story. We started the day having a look at Blazing VStars. We continued the day taking a look at In10tional Throwing, and both of them find themselves with a chance to secure their ticket to the grand finals.
Yes, indeed they do, Relic. And let's have a look at their performance here. We know that In10tional Throwing had only sweeps so far? Sheesh, look at that. Only sweeps so far for In10tional Throwing. And Blazing VStars had a 2-1 versus Perfect Executioner, I would say.
Execution.
Execution? Okay, perfect.
It's a play on execute. It's beautiful.
Oh, wow. Thank you for pointing that out, Relic. VStars versus Backstreet Birds. It's a 2-0 sweep. And Blazing VStars had a DQ in the first match, so...
Oh. No, they didn't. I think it was a bye, wasn't it? Yeah, they had a bye. There are no DQs, it's just buys.
Okay, just bye.
Yes. Just to clear up any confusion on that.
Yes, sorry, and thank you, Relic, for that. So, right now we have that matchup coming up. Of course, this is a best of 3, as we have seen all throughout the day. Winners finals, Relic.
Yes.
Jumping into this, we have seen, at least on stream, we have seen In10tional Throwing. And they've done well. They've done only sweeps.
Yeah, and I think a lot of their joy coming through GetYoshi on that Greninja. There is no picks and bans here, of course, and so, in theory, they can't be stopped. Unless the team decides to think smart and how you can counter a Greninja. And this is where I'm going to throw the ball back into your court. How do you counter a Greninja? Because it's got that long range, it's got some sustainability in that it can basically just dash away from a fight with relative ease. Of course, with Razor Claw, pretty good on those slows as well. Can be very difficult to deal with.
I would say that a Snorlax can always be good with the barrier there, pushing people away. You can also add the Zoomer as well, currently so good in the meta. You can have the Unite move to lock down onto the Greninja and stop them, at least temporarily, from getting away and escaping your grasp, since it is target locked as well. The Pokemon that was on the hands of Vin Diesel throughout the last match, the Buzzwole, also can do that with the Unite move. So I think those are a couple of possibilities. GetYoshi is still on that Greninja pick phase. Of course, In10tional Throwing on the orange side, and the now winners finalists Blazing VStars on the purple.
So we've got ourselves a Tyranitar, a Mamoswine, and a Mr. Mime all locked down. Mr. Mime, of course, still relatively popular amongst the crowd. But Rustic, they were on the Snorlax. They were tempted by the Blister there, but it looks like they are going to stick with the Snorlax. So the same lineup pretty much so that we saw in that last series. Blazing VStars, though, utilizing that Serena and that Glaceon. And I think Glaceon an interesting pick, given that with its recent nerf, it's only a minor nerf, but it has been enough to deter some attacker mains from it. They've tended to go towards other options, more to round off a team comp, since Glaceon on its own can be deadly, but certainly without Icy Wind being as powerful as it used to be, limits the actual, I guess, evolution path when it comes to those moves. And yeah, I mean, obviously in the right hands, can still be very powerful. Interested to see it on the field here tonight.
Yes, definitely. And tonight we have SilentSheeps going for that Glaceon. We always like to highlight who's going to go for that Central Area. And once again, we see the Greninja GetYoshi on the orange side going for that Forest. And this time the Glaceon, the evolution, is going for that as well. Probably going to go for a rotation afterwards as soon as they get the level 4, getting the Icy Wind and controlling the map around them.
So both Mr. Mimes having a little disagreement over the Indeedee, and worth mentioning the barriers as J-Frog there, sorry, not J-Frog, J-Fro I should say. There is a FrogParty, but it's on the other team. J-Fro picking up the Indeedee gubbins at the end of the day. Worth mentioning that obviously it was a time of power swap and psychic, long gone now, and actually a lot more Mr. Mimes looking to utilize more of a confusion barrier build here, be a little bit more of a nuisance and a team support as down goes that Larvitar. Looks like the orange team going to win out, at least on the bottom path, but on the top path, we see SilentSheeps already on that Glaceon, forcing everyone back. GetYoshi, of course, wanting to get onto that Greninja ASAP as the clouds come in, the clouds go, the majority of those gubbins go in the way of our friends on Blazing VStars.
It's true, Relic, and we have to highlight as well that 1v1 solo knockout from the Serena, I believe Shiro their name is, and it was really nice to allow them, Kiro, there we have it, to allow them to get a good fight for the Altara, even though you said that the orange team guaranteed most of them. We are arriving close to that countdown for the spawning of the Reggies on the map. So far, well, we have once again the sheep, the Glaceon coming back for the top path, looking for a gank on that Azumarill and the Snorlax, while Greninja GetYoshi is arriving as well.
Oh yeah, and you can see already heading straight into the middle there is SilentSheeps. That Azumarill's going to go down real quick. BlueKiro looking for more, not going to find any more thanks to a quick response from Rustic on the Snorlax. Of course, this Pupitar, not long for this world as the Buzzwole once again flexes the muscles. Down goes Rustic as well. Big win on top path and in this central area for the purple team, but no major overflowing of the, I guess, the tides of war in this particular situation. No more points scored for either side as we're 30 seconds out from our first Reggie drops.
And right now we have already something happening here on the top off once again, which is unfortunately Serena getting knocked out and FrogParty trying to get out with the eject button, but it wasn't enough, and that guarantees for loads of goals on the side of the Stars. And it's going to be a pressure, at least from them dominating that bush there against the purple team when the Regieleki arrive.
Right, J-Fro has stalled long enough on this bottom path. We still have the Bubsole and the Pupitar there. Everyone else made their way onto the top path. J-Fro with less than half health, and well, they have gone to work. In10tional Throwing. That Regieleki is theirs immediately, and this forces the purple team essentially to stick on their point. The Regieleki already knocking on the door as Rustic looks to try and sort things out here. Unfortunately, not going to be able to pick up SilentSheeps on the shielding, and all he needs is one more, but it's not going to get one more step. Regieleki doesn't hit the point, but that's a 36-point overdunk for GetYoshi on the Greninja. Another 15 on bottom path here. They lead 170 In10tional Throwing to the 61 of Blazing VStars.
Yeah, Blazing VStars blazing throughout the map here. Sky Ruins as they dominated the top path and as well here on the bottom with the push from Buzzwole. But definitely Relic on the top path. That was such a good comeback. We only had In10tional Throwing trying to defend that Regieleki, and then all of a sudden Rustic with the berry on the Snorlax guaranteeing the pressure on the goal, and GetYoshi coming in with the Unite move, knocking them out super quick as they fight here once again on the bottom. And actually it's coming from In10tional Throwing, a push, and it's going to go on their side, at least so far, as we still have SilentSheeps up and running. The Mr. Mime goes down, Kiro does as well, so the push is denied, and a 3 KO streak is now on the hands of GetYoshi once again.
Yeah, despite the glacial stage setting up 2 picks here for Sheeps and purple team, of course. GetYoshi gets KOs. Doesn't matter what scenario you find yourself in. He is pretty cracked on that Greninja. A 3 KO streak, all in the space of 20 seconds. And speaking of 20 seconds, well, certainly more than that has flown by since we were last looking at Regieleki. Already 2, 1, and 0 seconds out. Already In10tional Throwing. They are on it, 2 steps ahead of Blazing VStars. They have just melted the health bar of that Regieleki, and now for the push.
Yes, once again they doing the end the path The insect on that Snorlax, getting the player away from that base and onto the Regieleki. So the damage from the 4 people there was too much. We have Scarlet skill trying to kite around. The Unite move is popped. They don't have much of that health, and they're going to be helped with Vin Diesel arriving. It's enough to take them down, but the teammate ends up falling as well. The push with Snorlax comes to a halt when they get shut down, and the Regieleki is going to get destroyed as well. At this point, really is looking like a more dominating performance from intentional throwing, especially on that synergy between Rustic and GetYoshi Relic. Really happy to see them doing that, especially after the 2-0 sweeps that they had in the entire tournament.
Bottom path, and once again, intentional throwing, looking towards that bottom Reggie. It's probably going to be, I think it was a steal that I caught there, and so that's going to be an attack. Indeed it is, and special attack buff heading towards the second tier zones. Although that said, it feels like they're maybe just going to count their chickens before they hatch a plan as they set up shop here in the central area. ImarTuba moving back into the shrubbery here, covering off this northern path. We do have, of course, both tier 1 zones up and still available with their fast zones for intentional throwing. We are going to see one more Regieleki before we say hello to Rayquaza. Rustic's been caught a little out of position here, but good covering, although I'm worried about the Tyranitar. Looks like that Snorlax is heading a beeline straight for the second zone here, and that's going to draw some attention away as he hopes that the rest of his team gets their third Regieleki of the match.
Yes, and they are most likely getting that melted down pretty quickly, as they have throughout this game, Relic. As they do, there it is. It's going to be one of the most important Regielekis of the game, where we have 30 seconds for the Rayquaza spawning, so the double points are going to be unlocked soon. Unfortunately, they knew that it would be too dangerous to engage in a overcommit push on their top path, and just to divert the attention of the purple team defending against the Regielekis enough for now, take them away from getting the farm, getting the XP before the Rayquaza, as it's spawning in 5 seconds.
Yeah, Rustic doing a little bit of scouting here. Everyone up and ready. All Unite moves charged as Rayquaza drops into the central area. Rustic, yeah, you're asking for trouble there, and a little poke from Sheeps on the Glaceon, maybe just looking to bring people into the central area. We can see there Vin Diesel lying in wait with the shrubbery as these clouds are going to go down the way of Gecko, and Sheeps, I think, was down there as well. No one really willing to make that early move, but if someone is to make the move, Soph, it's going to have to be the purple team here, 100 points behind, just shy of 100 points behind, I should say. And really, it's a case of that top zone is looking real tempting to me, but surely you want to win the team fight first. Here we go then. Power Nap and Showtime. They're unleashed from the orange team. But that said, look at this reply, Showtime. Mr. Mime, J-Fro, putting in the work. BlueKiro, it's a mano fight here as Vin Diesel tries to get away, but Sheeps!
Wow.
Oh, Sheeps! The Icicle Spears slice through the opposition. Not a full team wipe, but it's only GetYoshi still up.
Oh, it's GetYoshi and also the Mr. Mime. Are they going to be able to get a good positioning for the Steel Unite move? Is not up, and it's going to go the way of SilentSheeps. The purple team guaranteeing an amazing comeback on this majorly dominated game by intentional throwing. And they are scoring up now, but Rustic is around the corner to try to deny some, not enough on that bottom path, as the rest of the team with the Rayquaza buff are pushing the central area too. Top path is open as well, so yeah, the margin is growing and growing, and now for over 300 points for Blazing VStars, Relic.
Intentional throwing, you just gotta feel that they were a little bit too confident in defending that major objective, being the Rayquaza. Simply put, because they waited so long, by the time there was a team fight that developed, they then went on to lose it, and they wouldn't have even had any time to try and score. Even had, they recovered recovered from their position with grace. They didn't. The scores just kept on a coming, and Blazing VStars just managing that situation perfect. Shout out to JFro, by the way. When you have a Mr. Mime v Mr. Mime contest, you always want to unleash that Unite move last. Yes, if you're facing an opposition, Mr. Mime, that showtime was so early coming through from ImarTuba. Perhaps blew the horn a little too early.
Yes, agree there, Relic. And I believe that unfortunately the attempt of a gank flank coming from intentional throwing on that central area was a little misplaced. And they ended up just being kited by SilentSheeps all throughout the fight. It was icy wind after icy wind, and the health bars were diminishing, decreasing. At one point where suddenly it was just Scarlet's skill and GetYoshi there. ImarTuba had to go back to base. I think actually ImarTuba got knocked out, then respawned in time to get back, but wasn't enough to accompany their GetYoshi to steal, of course. Unfortunately, the Greninja didn't have the Unite move this time. They've used it beforehand in the fight. So the possibility of guaranteeing a steal was a little too short.
Yeah, I mean, look, you'd back GetYoshi. With that Unite move, we've seen him do it multiple times. Seems to have a really good pulse on when to launch that Unite move and exactly how much damage it's going to do. And especially given that Rayquaza nerf in terms of its health bar, there's a bigger margin for error, actually. Actually, is it smaller margin? Basically, there's more chance that you will get that steal because there's less health to try and chip off that Rayquaza is what I'm trying to get across there. But nevertheless, as you say, he uses it earlier in the team fight, probably out of pure panic. And I think that was just how that team fight went against intentional throwing. It was a bit of panic once Tuba went down on the Mr. Mime. And look, they've got one more chance to really save their bacon to avoid the sweep. This might be the upper finals. It's still a best of 3, and Blazing VStars, they've not had a single sweep since the Backstreet Birds when we first saw them. They lost a game against Perfect Execution. They lost a game against Tourneys next Saturday. Haha, funny joke. It is today, we promise you. I mean, it's happening right now. Duh. But something tells me that the momentum is with them, Soph, because despite, I would say, being behind in the macro for majority of the game, it does all come down to that team fight, especially if you get close to an ace.
Yes, indeed. We had the macro dominance from intentional throwing all throughout that match, as we did see previously in the series before. But Blazing V-Stars, they got the upper hand on the final team fight in the Rayquaza pit. They positioned well. They guaranteed that SilentSheeps were in a good position to stay out of trouble and deal damage at the same time. So unfortunately, with what you pointed out, the early usage of the Unite moves was something that came a little too short for intentional throwing, and it made them ultimately lose the fight.
Yeah, and so I guess the next step for intentional throwing, Soph, do you stick with what you got because it worked plenty of times before, or do you make a switch? Because of course, with no pixel bans, like this team doesn't know what their opposition is choosing. It's the glory of being a spectator in this particular scenario. We know what both teams are choosing. We can look at the item builds even, but neither team, it's almost like a shadow over what the other team is choosing until that loading screen kicks in.
It's the blind pick.
Yeah. And so would you recommend sticking with the same plan? Is it time to switch things up?
I don't think the problem is with the comp. I would say the problem was with what you said. They didn't expect for Blazing V-Stars to perform that well in their last team fight. So I think it's supposed to be the improvement in their performance would be coming from staying calm and reading the situation better. So staying calm to know, okay, we don't have to use our Unite moves now. We still have time to sometimes, if, for example, that Mr. Mime, ImarTuba, usually the supporters with less XP, therefore they come back, they respawn faster as well. So sometimes it's best to just wait for it, just let it get knocked out, respawn, and come back with the actual possibility of coming back as we jump into these picks once again. The second game of the in the upper finals, Relic.
Yeah, no more hypothesizing. We're going to see exactly what's on the table, and the table is spread out exactly the same way. If you're an intentional throwing fan there, Vin Diesel looks likely to stick on that Buzzwole. And hey, look, don't fix what ain't broken when it comes to that winning comp. TTVvindiesel, Gecko, FrogParty, SilentSheeps, all look to be reprising their same roles. For me personally, I'm not entirely sure if sticking with Mr. Mime is the right choice if you're ImarTuba. If you're going to throw yourself into the middle there, you still got to understand that you're not invincible, Soph. And actually, I think I might have liked to have seen a Blissey in the place of a Mr. Mime, especially in combination with something like the Azumarill or the Snorlax. That's a lot of health that you got to burn through with the blissful assistance. But nevertheless, if ImarTuba is at least understanding of the mistake, as minute as it was in that team fight, then surely they should be expecting better results this time around.
Yeah, I can understand where you're coming from, but I definitely believe it's something that can be turned around with just being a little more patient with the Pokemon, being a little more patient with reading the fight. And of course, that can definitely be helped with a better communication with the team. So talking with your partners, talking with your team members, and getting that vision on what to do better established. And I think that might be what could help them beat out this series, this finals, as it is the first time they have lost a game throughout the tournament.
So, minute 1 comes and goes in potentially a game that sees intentional throwing down into the lower bracket. Early stacks coming through as SilentSheeps doesn't have to worry about any invasions, can just work up that XP as they've already evolved into the Glaceon. On bottom path, we see Jfro joined by Gecko. You would suggest that maybe Gecko's to move into the forest once this first set of clouds has come and gone, as we take a little look at the top path. And this is where SilentSheeps looks to join. They've done a really good job there, intentional throwing, just to pick up the majority of that XP. Now they're looking to try and pick off FrogParty, but FrogParty well blocked and well covered by SilentSheeps and Kiro here, as now they look towards the clouds to spawn in about 30 seconds in the central area.
I felt that the lead and the XP that intentional throwing got on the Otaria there was because unfortunately SilentSheeps seemed a little behind. Not that they were behind in their push in clearing the forest, but when they got there, the cooldown on Icy Wind was running out. So when they got to use it, the Icy Wind was not stacked anymore. So that is unfortunately little to no presence that you're going to have in regards to damage, in regards to slowing. So I think that was one of the things that allowed intentional throwing to get that advantage on the top path, as we had the Tyranitar clearing the Altaria on the central path, but everybody's getting picked off here by the incredible push and presence from intentional throwing in coming back on that central area.
Yeah, I've got some very annoying mosquitoes in my room right now, and I think that the most annoying mosquito, at least from the perspective of Blazing VStars, is Vin Diesel over on intentional throwing. Such a nuisance Pokemon, and so tanky, of course, with no evolutions. Its scaling has already maxed out, and you can certainly see here, not even a part of this fight, but the threat level is there. Lovely bit of work from Yoshi, from Rustic, from Scarlet skill. Again, the majority of the clouds, if not all of them, heading in their direction. Regieleki and the basement Reggie, whichever one it is, they drop now, and no full rotation yet for either team. Buzzwole and Pupitar staying on that bottom path.
Yes, they're all arriving right now, as
goodness.
Once again intentional throwing melts that objective so quickly. The Unimo from Glaceon has been popped. It's going to help clear this Regieleki with not much effort. They took down one of the enemy Pokemon as well. We really see how the pressure from intentional throwing is guaranteeing them that presence across the map in regards to getting objectives, and that has to be a constant that continues throughout the match as Snorlax is here. Rustic protecting that, but maybe not both of them. Oh yes, the Pillow guarantees the 30 on that top path. And on bottom, it was them once again that got the Reggie.
And now looking to push the objective. You still got SilentSheeps there. There goes Yoshi! And, well, SilentSheeps is actually able to pick off the Azumarill. Down goes Mr. Mime. And GetYoshi once again just scaring away this Glaceon. Dangerous damage output, but very, very squishy. Almost as squishy as that little frog ninja there. The Tyrannical Rampage, really just a ridiculous Unite move. Some would argue the best Unite move in the entire game. You can see that it scares the living daylights out of everyone. And, well, the Glacial Stage didn't scare the living daylights out of this orange team. A bit of a waste there as Vin Diesel's able to take them down. You see Gecko, FrogParty, JFro still trying to push this orange point, but now Yoshi has rejoined the fight. And Gecko's going to go down. The Piloswine's going to go down. And Mr. Mime's going to run away. Are they going to be able to move into the first tier zone with too much trepidation? Maybe, because they've got 4 orange team members surrounding them. Nice blocking. Down it goes. And JFro forced into a retreat.
Yes, and I think we had almost a 30-40 overdunk here on the bottom path as we have 5 seconds on the clock for the next Regieleki on the top. And everybody on the orange team is rotating. There we got Rustic stealing those wild Pokemon away, getting the area covered for those barriers. Oh, that big old pineapple there just rolling around as Blazing VStars is approaching as well. And it's a 1v1 fight of Mr. Mimes on the bottom.
I do not lie. Pokemon Company, if you're listening, if you were to make a citrus berry cosplay for Halloween, I'd absolutely buy that in a heartbeat. Just as the power nap has been unleashed in a heartbeat, the Glacial Stage comes down and takes down Scarlet here. The next pick likely to be Rustic, actually. Big damage coming through from Sheeps. That said, in comes Greninja to no avail, really. Takes down the Tyranitar, sure. And actually, you know what? Never mind. Mr. Commentator just lying to you folks. Gets a triple KO, leaving only FrogParty and JFro to try and snipe away this Regieleki. They've stalled for long enough. And so Tyranitar and Serena have rejoined the battle. That Scarlet skill, Azumarill, melting Regieleki once again, but the showstopper's coming in. It's anybody's guess. And would you believe it? Mr. Mime finally comes on through. It's showtime, baby.
Yeah, JFro coming on through with the steal there, the guarantee, and the showstopper on all of the players of intentional throwing, guaranteeing the buff, guaranteeing the fight, taking down the top path. Of course, once again, taking the goal before Regieleki had even touched it, and it's so close to touching it once again. Can the orange team even defeat this? I think they can. Woo! They've scared Blazing VStars away from that base, but that was really, really frightening for both of these teams.
Sheeps headed to the bottom path, dunks a 50. And once again, this game has flown by, less than a minute away from that Rayquaza, which more than likely means that even if we do see a timer for either Reggie pop up, very unlikely that we will see it prioritized. XP gain is the name of the game as people look to just forest around and try and pick off these clouds. Lovely shielding once again from Rustic, who pushes JFro back, and they're running into trouble. Oh my goodness me. Oh, avert your eyes, children.
Well, hear me out. That's one of the things that is super essential about MOBAs. Sometimes one person getting out of the fight, getting back to base by being knocked out is not that bad. As we see, we have 10 seconds for the player come back, and they have already, 10 seconds, because that's the timer for the Rayquaza, the most important thing for this last fight of the game. So they are still there, it's fine. But the presence from this orange team is all over the place as they guarantee. They do not. It's SilentSheeps stealing it from underneath their noses, and they get the buff. They're going to be able to push in even further as there are only 2 members of intentional throwing is still up. The Rustic 25 points is going to be scored, but the rest of the base on the orange side is in shambles.
That's the first Unite move that GetYoshi has, I guess, flubbed. And that was the worst time to flub it. I was actually going to criticize WDMichael here, scoring 50 just before it ticked over to double points. It turns out doesn't matter. Doesn't matter. You got SilentSheeps on your team, rocking the Glaceon. But that said, great team fight here. As In10tional Throwing plans a little invasion on the top path. And it does begin here with that first tier zone, which never went down in the first place. That's going to be 60 from the Buzzwole. Maybe could have divvied up a little bit better, but at least get the points on the board. You are still just shy of 300 behind. Now we go in on the Mamoswine. Do we have any Unite moves to use? The answer is That is 3 down in the space of a second. GetYoshi has gotten in the car and driven off to another state. Are they going to be able to make it over the border? I think just about. But the border that separates them between the winners finals and the grand finals, I fear it's going to be a little too thick, Soph.
Oh, would you look at that? I was actually really impressed with how they were coming back on this, but that jump pad move from Blazing VStars, going on that goal to defend it, and the Tyranitar alongside the glacial stage really melted everyone on In10tional Throwing. And unfortunately, I'm not gonna say they threw this game, but they ended up that's such a shame. They were sweeping everyone, Relic. I mean, I'm so happy with the results and performance coming from Blazing VStars. I am sad to see the sweepers go down on a upper finals like this.
SilentSheeps will no doubt get the plaudits. Obviously got the MVP on the final screen there. Clearly got the Rayquaza objective not once but twice over the course of this series, so deserves the plaudits. But I want to give a shout out to FrogParty and JFro. Without those two stalling on major objectives, I think that we would have seen a steamroll. I think that In10tional Throwing had that game in their pocket. You just got to look at the percentage of recovery and team damage taken by JFro, especially. It was in a battle of mimes. JFro came out with flying colors.
Yes, we gotta say, for the people at home, for the people in chat, so the percentages would be 43k damage for JFro, Mr. Mime, and ImarTuba, unfortunately, with the 20k. And well, to be fair, the recovery was pretty good. I think they were running 2 different builds, weren't they? So that's probably where this is coming from. But I agree with you entirely. I think at the end of the day, the communication in the side of Blazing VStars really looks to be on point, because every time, even though they would lose a couple of objectives here and there, of course, because In10tional Throwing were really oppressive on that side. So arriving so on time for all the objectives. At the same time, Blazing VStars really coming through with their persistence and the knowledge, the confidence of there's still game to be played, and we can still really turn this around, making a good use of a fight with those Unite moves. So important as JFro, FrogParty, SilentSheeps, of course. We have to say that even though SilentSheeps was a highlight in regards to stealing and all of that, that Tyranitar was on over
Gecko.
100. Gecko over 100k damage. So really, it comes down to how the whole team was playing together, and it's a deserved upper finals win for Blazing VStars.
Yeah, Gecko had to navigate tricky waters as well. It's always a difficult gig trying to level up that Larvitar into eventually Tyranitar, especially if you are going down one of the paths rather than the central area, rather than the forest, which you would love to be able to go in and utilize off the launch of the game. But he does it with aplomb. I don't think we mentioned his name too much, actually, in the late game, but clearly doing all of the damage in those team fights to allow the likes of Sheeps to pick them off one by one and ultimately come out on top. And they're going to remain on top, Blazing VStars. They've punched their ticket through to the grand finals, whereas their opponents are dropped into the lower bracket. And that is where this broadcast is heading next. But alas, not with us too. For Sophchan and I, it is time to say goodbye. Soph, any words of encouragement for intentional throwing as they head into the lower bracket?
Intentional throwing. I think you guys have so much potential, and the performance is really, really on point. I just really think it comes down to that late game, that opportunity to keep things together and maintain the level of lead that you guys were showing all throughout the match. That said, thank you so much, everyone here, Y League, Michael, Gamma, you, Relic, of course, for casting tonight with me. Thumbs up to all of us. And we are going to throw this lovely little broadcast into a break, but we are coming back, of course, not us, Artisan and Tings are going to be the lovely talent to join you in the rest of this broadcast. From me, it is a thank you and I'll see you later.